Welcome to the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. This is Lori Rivers with you, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world, regardless of how crunchy it gets. Oh, guys. You know when I start to chuckle? Well, this is a heck of an episode because we're living in heck of a time. The energy is going to just continue to be very surreal through February, and then we hit March. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to talk about March 7th because it's a day that we need to be ready for, but I don't know how ready we can be for it, including the rest of March. 2023 has 4-ish parts, and March is one of those, okay? March is one of those. I mean, you could almost say we have 6 parts, but let's just say we've got 4 parts, and March is one of those. And it's almost hard to give predictions about it because that energy is so big and so chaotic and so extra, okay? And I gave my predictions in the 2023 year ahead, but I'm going to keep giving them here, as the insights build. Because you have to remember, astrology isn't just one event after the other, the way you think that history gets taught. You go from this battle to that war, to that natural disaster, to that. And it's even how because we compartmentalize things. But the thing you have to remember is everything kind of builds upon itself. Everything builds upon itself. And so that's one of the reasons I keep things updated and fresh. Because as we get closer to the event or events or time period, clarity starts to come. Okay. That's why I say stretch your wings if you're doing predictive astrology. Stretch them by looking 20 years out, but don't spend too long there because it's out of context. You can pick the general theme, but the details will be ridiculously difficult to predict 20 years out. 5 years out, you might be more specific. And, the general themes, I've got marched down. The specifics, they're starting to become very, very clear at this point. And some things we can prepare for and other things we can't. Physically, we can't prepare for certain kinds of events, but we can prepare our mindset. That is the one thing we have control of. And we're going to talk a lot about that in this episode and what you can look forward to. So we're going to start with some of the what you can look forward to in February. And then we're going to do patron shout-outs. Then I'm going to have Jen's interview, because I talked to Jen, Astrologer Jen. We talked a little bit more about the Planet of the Month Club, which is so much fun. And I really appreciate the astrologers and Jen specifically for kind of heading up that event, because she so wanted it, to have people to talk astrology with outside of just us. And he's just loving it. I think you'll really love that interview. And then we'll end the podcast talking about March 7th of 2023. And I'll toss in some of the rest of March too, but I just really want you ready for that. All right, so we're going to talk about February. I'm talking about the Make-A-Wish Day on the 16th. And what I think can also happen with that on the mundane level. So we'll talk about it on a personal level and on a mundane level. And then we'll talk about the new moon in Pisces and talk about what that's getting started. All right. You ready? Here we go. told you February was going to be surreal, okay? Remember? I said the first part of January would move really slow. It'd be an extension of 2022, and then we'd really hit 2023. Mid-January, we'd speed in, fly through February, and here we are. It's the 13th. What? Tomorrow's Valentine's Day. I'll talk a little bit more about Valentine's Day as well. I gave a special giftee to patrons, my Love and Sex and Astrology workshop, where we talked about a lot more than you'd think. It's actually a really good workshop that I gave in late 2021, but it's or early 2022. Sorry, I think I did that for Valentine's Day last year. But anyway, it's a really good little workshop, and people really enjoyed it, and I gave it to patrons. Astro Adventurers and Up, ASAP Horoscopes and Up. I changed tiers this year. ASAP Horoscopes doesn't mean quickly, it means the Awake Space Astrology Podcast Horoscopes. Yeah. So don't think it's supposed to be quick. Oh, gosh. So what do we have to look forward to? Oh, there are days I don't like doing mundane. I'm like, can I just stick to natal charts right now? What do we have coming up on deck? Well, what we have up on deck is we do have Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day isn't going to be all that romantic this year, guys. It's just not. It's almost like we're a little bit distracted by flying objects, diseases, threats of war, bad economy, gloom, despair, and agony on me. Oh my gosh. There you go. Malcolm saying, shake it off. Shake it off, Lori. There's a lot going on. And the Valentine's Day just kind of reflects that. I do think, here's my big prediction, okay? You guys can tag me on videos on TikTok for this. Out of Schadenfreude. I don't like being tagged on disasters. I don't. If I call, a natural event or something, it makes me feel really weird, okay? If you saw the crying video, who hasn't, right? God, it just keeps getting views. It's embarrassing. And then I think, it's authentic, But you can tag me on the breakup videos. I think we're going to hear about breakups and cheaters and liars and all kinds of fun stuff on TikTok, because don't people like that drama? But not that getting cheated on is funny. It's not. I've been through it. It hurts. By the way, you never do anything to deserve being cheated on. You just don't. Okay? It's always about what they're doing. And it's honestly never the other woman or man or them. It's never the other person involved's fault. Like, you want to blame them for seducing your beloved? Your beloved has something called self-control, and they can exercise it or not. Put the blame firmly. I get mad when I hear about home wreckers. The person who wrecked the home is the person the person who's at home that broke their commitment. Okay? I'm just saying. Yeah. Again, I've lived through it and I know the feeling, and it sucks. But it's really never the other person involved's fault. Whether they knew the person was attached or didn't know it, even if they're your best friend, and that's a whole nother betrayal. Okay? That's different. That's 2 in 1. That's a twofer. But yeah, the Valentine's Day chart just doesn't look all that romantic to me. It looks a little, it looks adventurous, and if you're wanting hookups, it's a great day for that. No judgment on my end. It's just, it's an exciting day. You'll have, and one of the reasons I don't think it's going to be all that romantic, the sun's going to be, a degree away from Saturn. It's more subdued. You will have the moon and Mars in opposition. The moon's in Sagittarius. Mars is in Gemini. Now, they're not inherently cheaters. That's not why I'm saying this. It's just, we've all been going through a hell of a lot over the last few years. And people have been really kind of feeling, kind of out of sorts. What do they want? How do they want their relationships to be? What kind of relationships do they want to have? What are they going to settle for? How do they want to actually live? And so people have been making a lot of compromises or have lowered their standards to be in a relationship. That's part of what has happened. So, yeah. So we also have Venus moving into conjunction with Neptune, and it's pretty close on the 14th. And that could be a little romantic, kind of. I think the most romantic thing that could happen is you could hook up with somebody and it end up becoming something in the future, but not in that moment. You might meet somebody. And I'm not just talking about hookups like sexual hookups. You might bump into somebody in the grocery store or in a bookstore. But be careful. It could be an illusion. So let things play out. And as I say on all of my live streams, why are you wanting a partner so bad? What does it say about you when you're single? Okay. Is it bad? Is it? I don't think it is. I don't think you need a partner to be valuable. Okay. We don't need a pick-me society, which is what we've had forever. A woman's value has intrinsically been set by the partner she has, intrinsically, especially in the last 1,000 years, okay? And we're undoing that. So, value yourself enough to be alone and happy in your company, and then when you meet somebody who actually fits the bill, you'll know it. And you'll be happy, okay? And if you're in a relationship, this does not mean it's going to break up, and it doesn't mean you're going to find out they're cheating. I just think we're going to see a lot of that kind of video on TikTok, okay? If you've been together a while, this would be a good day to go have some fun, okay? This is a good day to play. The energy is going to be heavy with the Sun conjunct Saturn. So it's really a day to be like, life is serious and I just need a break. I need to go play some video games. I need to read a book. I need to listen to some tunes. Let's go for a drive. Let's go for a walk. Those are all great things to do in this energy. Okay? So there's that. That's Valentine's Day. And patrons, on Valentine's Day, the patron-only Kink podcast comes out. That's right, Kink and Astrology. It's going to be humorous. Okay? It's going to be humorous, I promise. I think we need to laugh. I do. My Venus and Gemini in the 8th house that has gallows humor is screaming right now. It's like, we must joke at our own doomed fate. I'm kidding, kind of. I'm trying really hard to keep it light, guys. I really am. There's, it's wild times on this planet, So on the 16th, we have Venus conjunct Neptune. It's really easy to kind of get into a dream state with that energy, but since Saturn and the Sun are conjunct at that time, I think it really is a great time to manifest. I think it's a great time to make a wish, set intentions, declare something to the universe. I think it is an immaculate time to do that with Saturn and the Sun conjunct, because Saturn isn't just limitations and restrictions. Saturn rules concretization, crystallization, making things physical. And so with Venus and Neptune in the sign of dreamy Pisces, imaginative Pisces, mystic Pisces, and the Sun and Saturn in Capricorn or in Aquarius, which is a grounding, innovative energy. I think it would be a good time to make a wish. I do. So you want to do that. What do you want to wish for? Well, look where Aquarius is in your chart. And then you're going to wish according to the house and the theme of the house. Remember, the first house is yourself, how your appearance, your physicality, how you put yourself out there. Second house is finances, resources, how you feel secure. Well, I've had to edit out a sneeze. Goodness sakes. So that's all. Let's see, second house is resources, including money, but it could, things that make you feel secure. Things that you earn and how you earn things. And then your sense of, value, your values, what's important to you, and also how you value you. It's the house of love, real love. Third house is communications devices like computers and cell phones, cars for transportation, boats, planes, automobiles, trains. But making a wish, for how you communicate to yourself and others. Fourth house is things to do with home and family. Fifth house is recreation and procreation. It's everything from how we play sports to and what sports we like, to the arts, dancing, children, dating. Okay. It's where we risk rejection. That's what it's about, gambling. You win some, you lose some. That's fifth house. Sixth house is work, health, and service. Okay. Seventh house is our contracts and agreements. Okay. Those really important one-on-one relationships where we obligate our time and our energy. Eighth house is the unknown. It's how we deal with grief. It's how we transform things. It's the treasure trove. It's how we earn, or not earn, but it's the support and money we gain from other and what we spend on other. Ninth house is expanding experiences. It's academia. It's travel, long distance travel, not short distance, but long distance. It's production in a lot of ways. Not widgets, but like theater production, publications, journalism. It's preach and teach in energy. It's our ideals and our principles. 10th house is our passions, our avocation. What really, how we show up, how we exude authority. It's our ambition, okay? And it's how we deal with authority figures, and it's how the world sees us. 11th house is hopes, dreams, inspiration, aspiration, groups, community, networking, investors. Okay. 12th house is how we limit or liberate ourselves. It's our connection to the all that is. It's the mysticism of life and our connection to it. It's where we have faith or we have fear, which limits us. And so when you're making your wishes, think on that. All right. So with that, then we move to the next event. The next event is that new moon. Now, I'm not doing new moon ceremonies this year. I'm doing full moons because our full moons, oh man, each one has a chart that's pretty wild. But let's talk about that new moon. The new moon is pretty interesting. So it's on February 20th. I believe it's February 20th. Let me pull the chart. Let's put it to the AM, not the PM. Yeah, so it's actually really early on the 20th morning. soon as I get this chart, which it's actually more like on the West Coast, it's actually the 19th. It's like at 11, that's like at about 11:40 on the 19th evening, but that's the 20th on the East Coast. I get so annoyed. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so it's at about 11:40 p.m. on February 19th, which is February 20th at like 2 a.m. or 2:40 a.m. Eastern. And so it's a very interesting new moon. Because we have planets at the beginning and the end of the sign. So we have 1 degree of Pisces being that new moon. Remember, almost all of our new moons are at 1 degree until August, okay? New cycle. This is early degrees, okay? It's close to the anaretic degree of 0. This is the full, we're starting new cycles where anything goes. This is wild card energy. There will be people saying, don't manifest. You can't help manifesting. So you might as well be deliberate about it. We manifest every moment of every day of our lives. We do. We manifest every day because we generate our reality through our perceptions. And that's why we talk about in metaphysics and mysticism, we talk about, changing your thoughts, okay? Now, you're not drawing every bad thing that ever happened, but if you're tuned to the channel of misery and destruction and awfulness, it will be very hard to find any kind of silver lining. It's going to be hard to find the good stuff out there too. And yeah, there's times that's really hard. If you look at Turkey and Syria, it's an ungodly situation. It is just unbelievably devastating. And yet, have you seen the videos where they find a child or a young person or an animal and how happy they are, the joy in an intensely difficult situation, in a devastating situation, right? And yet they find that one ray of hope. It's enough to keep them going because they're seeing a lot of ugly stuff. We're not seeing all the ugly stuff. We can imagine it. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You want to tune and look for the helpers. Okay? And why am I saying that? Well, because there's a whole lot of crap going on, okay? It's beyond interesting times at this point. Have you noticed? It's beyond interesting. It's like, oh my God, we don't even want to say what's next. And so you need to tune when you make intention. Otherwise, you're going to kind of manifest on a default setting. And manifest doesn't mean you make it happen. It can. It can be shaped with the hands, but it's really to be made revealed, okay? And kind of like Michelangelo used to say that the stone would give him the figure. That he wasn't making the figure. The stone would tell him where to go to make it happen. Well, that's kind of it with our reality. When we tune in to the different frequencies, okay? Again, I'm never blaming you. You didn't deserve anything bad that happened to you. Oh my God, no. Okay? But I do know from personal experience, when you can tune and focus forward, okay? And focus on more of what's kind of sort of going right, okay? And there may not be a whole lot of that sometimes, but you grab onto whatever is, okay? So we've got 1 degree of Pisces is the new moon. That's when the moon and sun are conjunct. And then Venus is at the end of Pisces. Venus is at the end of Pisces at 29:59. She slides into Aries on the 20th. But at the time of the new moon, she's at 29:59. So we have the new moon in Pisces, and we have Venus at the anaretic degree of Pisces, meaning she's in the last bit you can. Remember, I say no cusps. This is why 29 degrees, 59 minutes. She's not kind of sort of Pisces and Aries. She is all Pisces. This is almighty Aphrodite standing tall. I think this is a really good time to lean in to your faith. I think this is demanding the universe to reveal to you that which is for the best thing for you in the most comfortable way possible. Okay, don't just wish for the best thing for you. Don't just intend that. Give it a caveat. Okay, for your own good from the universe does not need to be a hard lesson. It took me a long time to learn that I could direct the show. Okay, we can't control all events, but we can control what happens through them. So it's an interesting new moon. It is. It's an interesting new moon, and we'll have Mercury square Uranus that day. It's moving into a square. It's an approaching square, and I think we'll have internet disruptions. We could see lightning. We could have more issues with aircraft and things getting shot out of the sky, because Mercury will also be trine Mars. Tensions are building globally. I don't think it's an alien invasion, and if I'm wrong about that, you guys will be the first to let me know, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a something. As I look forward at the astrology, I think globally people are trying to mix it up so nobody's focusing on what's going wrong on their own countries, right? Because you can suppress people when there's a conflict. I don't know that playbook's going to work. I just don't. I don't see global thermonuclear war, but I do see tensions rising. And I do think that conflict can spill over in isolated incidences. So fingers crossed on that we dodge some of that energy. You can't really pray for peace and expect everybody to fall into line, because humans all have free will, but you can consider your own family. Now, while Venus, this is on the new moon day of it's February 19th on the West Coast, okay, in Hawaii, and Alaska, and it's February 20th on the East Coast and in Mountain Central, etc. We also have Pluto and Venus in a sextile, and so on a mundane level, I think that can be a pretty dramatic event. I do. I think we could see a big announcement made by people in film, television, entertainment. I think there could be announcements made around chemicals and the environment, and damage done to the environment through poor infrastructure. Yeah, I'm thinking about Ohio and the Ohio River Valley. That's an important watershed, you know. I mean, all watersheds are important, and I know I'm not the only person who is very concerned that it doesn't seem to matter which administration is in. People just don't seem to care about our water quality and our air quality and quality of life in general, including healthcare. we are a singular species on a floating rock in space. You know, it's wild that there are people still so attached to really ridiculous beliefs that have to do with the rapture and what have you, and they don't care what happens to this planet. And they don't see humans as anything more than numbers, or sinners, or undeserving, or unworthy, or untouchables. And Jen and I were talking off mic, you know, just behind the scenes, and it's so frustrating to thinking people. It's easy to feel hopeless in the scope of it. I don't want you guys to do that. We can intend to find solutions, both in our own lives and then to find others to group together with to make those solutions happen. Okay, and I think that's really important for us. So that's the new moon on the /19th, 20th. Yeah. And then there's so much. Wait, there's more. And then on, let's see, what day is it? And then, of course, the 20th, Venus slides into Aries. On the 20th, Venus slides into Aries. And that's an interesting day. I mean, we could see Venus is not traditionally known for anything other than benefic events. But we're living in interesting times. There could be announcements, there could be, announcements when it comes to individual liberties. There could be announcements when it comes to individual achievement. We could hear that. I mean, we're moving into award seasons. We've got lots of awards happening. So things like that. Are on deck. It should be interesting. So, but we're also going to be looking at, on a collective level, what we need to sustain ourselves. And it may even end up feeling a little bit like every person for themselves. And I've been kind of trying to get you guys to think that way, of like, we can't take care of the big stuff. We can take care of me. I can take care of me. If I pick up my garbage, if I take care of my mess, nobody else has to take care of that. I took care of it. If we all picked up our socks, right? If we all washed the dishes, if we all threw out the milk carton after completing the milk, and didn't just leave it in the fridge. You know what I'm talking about, right? Common courtesy. That's where I want to see that Venus energy go, but on a mass consciousness, it probably won't. So things we have to look forward to with that Venus in Aries is getting a very clear picture about what makes us feel safe and secure. And you'll be able to attract a lot of that to you. So, think about that. All right. Ponder that. Ponder this. Ponder that. But that's what we've got to look forward to. It's going to be really surreal as we head into March. Okay. It's going to be really surreal. And I've got a workshop. I've got the full moon workshops at the end of every month to prepare you for those full moons at the beginning of every month, where I talk about a little bit about what's going on in the mundane, but more about how where you need to focus to release that which is impeding you from receiving the benefits of the intentions you set on the new moons. They're very powerful workshops, because at the end I do a meditation exercise with you, and we clear through your energy, just move through the blocks very, very gently. Okay, very, very gently, and it's very grounding. We do this in the evenings because, we do it in the evening, because then you can go to sleep and have a good night rest. And people really have been raving about these. So I'm doing them every month in 2023. I wasn't sure I was going to commit to that, but I am. Okay, I'm committing to that to help us navigate these very strange energetical tides. And they are. This is very odd times, okay? Strange indeed. So these workshops, they help me too. Helps me because I have to go into my higher consciousness, into an altered state to lead the meditation. And boy, man, there hasn't been one where I haven't just slept like a baby afterwards. And then you get the recording. So if you're a patron, remember you get a special discount on those. You can find it in the Crunch Report email or in the Patreon post. So that is that. We're gonna meditate our way through it. It's an active meditation. It's not a no mind meditation. It's an energetical exercise to keep yourself receptive to that which serves your highest good in the gentlest and kindest way possible. All right, let's do some patron shout-outs. Oh, it's my favorite part of the podcast. It's patron shout-outs. Without you, there is no me. So thank you. I am so privileged to have so many of you supporting me. It is truly an honor and a privilege. We've got a bunch of people who have joined the Planet of the Month Club, and I am so jazzed about that. It's a super fun way to learn astrology, and people are really enjoying it. Now, if you're a new Planet of the Month Club member, you want to make sure you're looking in Patreon for the Planet of the Month Club posts, and you can choose those by tags, because I've got those tagged Planet of the Month, and you'll find everything in there. You can join Planet of the Month at any time. Just know that we're dealing with one planet per month. We're kind of decoupling everything so you can really get a feel and a knowing and an understanding and a sensing of the energy at play in your own chart. We have great exercises. I teach a 2-hour workshop every month at the beginning of the month, and then my trained astrologers are offering the office hours, and it is super cool. So we've got Mariah, Sarah, Rhonda, Kim, Jessica, Jana Maria, Bean, Mimi, Natalie, Monica, Kristen, unofficially Loki, Mariana, Gabby, Rhiannon, Catherine, Garrett, Olivia, Allison, Liz, Maina, Jennifer, and Yadira. Welcome, new patrons. Thank you for joining. I look forward to having you in the Discord. Okay, what's up next? Jennifer's up next. And then I'm going to end the podcast talking about March 7th, which is the full moon in Virgo. And it's every bit as wild energy as that big old Leo full moon that saw some pretty rough seismic activity. So there's indicators we could see some on March 7th as well. Now, these could be aftershocks in the Levant, but it could be other stuff as well. So I'm going to talk about that and more at the end of the podcast, and what we all can do to best prepare. Okay. As always, grow food, keep some cash on you. But we're just going to take a look and see what we can do to navigate these very interesting times. But first, a lovely interview with Jen Russell, one of my natal astrologers, and I like to call her the little professor because she is so enthusiastic about the subject, and she's so excited to share what she's learned and to host discussions with the other astrologers there as well. But she likes to make up games for learning, and I think you'll enjoy hearing why that is in the next segment. Oh my goodness, we're in for a treat. We have the wonderful astrologer Jen Russell. Hello, Jen.
Hi.
Welcome,
good to be
welcome
here.
back. How are you these days?
A little zapped. I've been feeling the crunch like everybody has.
Yeah, and it's only February. I'm a little not looking forward to March, but that's why we're doing some things to keep our energy up. Right?
Yeah, we gotta have fun.
Yeah, gotta have fun. I always say the world can burn around us, but we can still have an individually relatively content day. Most days. There's always something good to look forward to. And yeah. You're doing you're my lead for Planet of the Month. You're a point person for office hours. How's that going?
Well, we just had our first office hour meeting this Friday, and it went really well. I had a lot of fun personally.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just so nice to be around a group of people that are also passionate about learning and the same subject that I really love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having that interaction really just like helps stimulate thought.
Right.
I had realizations while we were there. I think other people did too. Just like, yeah, I love that.
Right.
It really did energize me. Oh,
right. Well, and speaking of energizing, this month in February, we're dealing with the sun, and the sun is our energy levels. Just really quickly to our listeners, when I'm talking about energy levels, I'm talking about your physical energy levels. You know, are you dragging? Are you moving slow? Or are you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? Do you feel vital? Do you feel, zapped? And for you, Jen, this is probably going to be a very energizing experience because of your own sun. You pushed for this club.
Yes. I really just wanted to be able to talk to more people about astrology. Good astrology, and not just like bang my head against the wall.
What makes you bang your head against the wall though? What gets you now that you're on the other side of the curtain?
What do you mean? Like now that I have some experience and
now that it's not just even intellectual. You've read a fair amount of charts in the last year.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride, because I feel like the biggest difference between people who maybe haven't read a chart, like kind of tell based on how like important the context of the whole chart is to them. Because if you're like taking things out in bits and pieces and trying to do cookbook astrology when you're reading like someone's natal chart, that's not like the full picture. Like realizing how big like the intuition part of is and putting all of the pieces together, like that pattern recognition, and like it's just like that's the most important part to me and how I do it. I feel like there's a tendency, just because of all of the books that are available for people and the kinds of like ways that people get their astrology education nowadays, it's really easy to like compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And not really see it as the full like picture, everything working together.
Mm-hmm.
That is really like the beauty of it.
It is the synthesis, bringing it all together, tying all the loose ends together, that we're more of a tapestry than we are, Legos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, cookbook astrology is if that's what you've got, it's a good resource.
Yeah, like I read those books. I use those. I'll reference them sometimes.
Yeah.
But use it to like stimulate your own thought instead of just taking what's written as gospel.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes I'll read something, I'm like, what the hell? No. I think it's this way, but it's good to like, have something to start that spark in the brain.
And the questioning leads to experimentation, and once you get some experience in reading charts, then you can really be more critical of what's in the books too. It's hard to know if you haven't tried it out or measured it or experimented with it. Read a bunch of things.
It's been my favorite part of the process, is seeing how it like applies to actual people's lives, what their stories are, and how it's playing out in their life.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned the intuition side of it, which is less the feely side. It's again, I think bringing up pattern recognition is really important. It is part of intuition. And then how is that pattern playing out? And that's
usually what I'm like looking at a chart, like all of the little pieces. I'm like, okay, I'm like scanning, I'm like looking at connections and things. My brain is just like, it's like working in the background. Coming up with it.
Right. And it's really just validating, as I say, validating when you're in a reading and you just nail it,
Yeah. I love getting the like little giggles, like the knowing giggle.
Oh yeah, I don't think that ever gets old, because you've really got it there. That's that little detail that is enough to prove accuracy. And it's confidence building too in the reading. So speaking of, how are you feeling about your readings?
Good. I've had so much fun. My last couple readings that I've done. On my own a little bit.
I love it.
Yeah, it's just really wonderful. Like being able to teach people the things that I know that are just living in my brain, and to offer this like information to someone.
I love
and they
that.
seem to really appreciate it. I think that's the energy that I get. So
yeah.
And I love sharing my knowledge.
I love that. Well, and you're good at it. And sometimes clients don't tell us, but they tell other people. So like I was doing a reading for someone last week, and I was mentioning, creativity in it. And they're like, oh my gosh, Mackenzie read my natal chart and said I was a really creative person, and I never saw myself that way before. And it changed everything for me. But I heard it, not Mackenzie. So if you guys have a reading with Jen or Mackenzie or Casey or Rita, you need to let them know they changed something for you. Email us. Because we don't know. We're like, I hope they're okay after this.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird...
I always have faith that I'm like, all right, I'm offering the best information that I can, and whatever is useful for them, they will be able to take if they want to.
Well, 100%, but it's also nice to hear it from them if you need it.
Oh, yeah, I do love that. Like, we never get tired of that feedback.
No. Yeah. Even after you've been doing astrology for many, many, many years, having that feedback is really nice to have.
Yeah. I had emailed the first person that ever did an astrology reading for me like a couple months ago, because I was just like, dang, that experience really did send me like on a on such a path. And then the response was, oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me know. We don't often hear back from our clients, so
Yeah.
But I think it was like such a nice experience for both of us.
Oh, I bet. Well, and now that you're doing readings, you know exactly why you would give the feedback.
Yeah. I was like, dang, all right. It's just like, yeah.
I love that.
If you're ever on the fence about sending your astrologer an update,
just do it.
We like to know, especially if it's a good thing.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Although I've had clients let me know when I've given them warnings, you know, in transit readings, you know, that they listened and avoided problems.
Yeah, that's a good thing to me.
Yeah, that it is a good thing, but you know, and sometimes it's been hints at not so nice things just to give a heads up, and they're like, well, you were right about that. I'm like, oh, but it's still good to hear it, you know, because it's about accuracy, you know.
Yeah, there are some times that I wonder, I'm like, did that thing that I said really hit? Did they take that advice that I gave them?
Yeah. It's weird to know. It's such a deeply intimate space, the natal chart reading. I mean, it's a very exposed space. And then off they go into living. So
they can meet this person for an hour, explain deep parts of themselves that they don't talk about with other people, maybe don't even really acknowledge in themselves, and then we just bounce.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but it's cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Well, you're good at explaining things. You've got a lot of preacher teacher energy, you know.
Done that my whole life.
Right. Little professor. That's what we call her in the mods, the little professor.
I just get very excited about talking to people about like the things that I know. I'm like, oh, they might have something to teach me. So
absolutely. Yeah. Said as a true Sagittarian.
Yes.
So yeah. So planet of the month, you've got some games to play, huh?
Yeah, this week we played Astro Jeopardy, which was a game that I had made when I was first studying with Lori. When I first started to the first class I took. That's how I like to study, you know. I'm a Sag, you gotta keep it fun if I'm gonna do it.
Absolutely.
So that's how I like to learn, by playing a lot of games, and
yeah.
I think lightening it up for some people is good. Like
yeah. Well, and that's the goal of the Planet of the Month Club. Notice I called it a club, not like workshops. Is astrology is already kind of brain melting stuff, and the current times we're living in are hard enough. I think having somewhere that is fun and social and you're still learning and growing is maybe more important right now, that we keep it fun, keep it light, keep it as light as we can. You can heal and move forward and find self-understanding, having fun. You can. So last week was Astro Jeopardy. Any thoughts on this week? I know I'm getting a list together of the key words for the sun and ruler things it rules. I don't know. I haven't thought of, I've thought of prompts with it. Of course, there's always bingo.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind was Family Feud for like
Oh,
the
I like
keywords.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. That'd be easy.
Mhm.
Survey said. I love that. It's great. That's good with the keywords. Smart. See, there we are working it out on the podcast. This is kind of what we do, guys. If you ever wondered. Yeah, I like that. And I'm not going to lie, I ended up without a reading that Friday. And I was like, how did I not have a reading? How did I block that time off? But then I remembered I actually looked at my own transits for a change. And I actually blocked the time off. But I ended up working and doing back end work, all the stuff that gets piled up. And it was so nice to be able to do that, knowing you guys had the discussion going. I peeked. I looked at how many people were there. There were a lot of people there. I felt really good to know you guys had it. I got a lot done. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. It was like taking some things off the plate.
Yeah. But you guys are going to have more
fun. It's mutually beneficial too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if I'm there, it's going to end up being a class. You know what I mean? A straight up lecture. And that's not as fun. I can want it to be something else, but we know what will happen.
Yeah, we get excited about learning from you. Kind of. But yeah, having those discussions and figuring out for yourself is important.
It's really important. Yeah, it's really important. I've built a structure and framework, but it's, and I teach the workshop at the beginning of the month. But I might pop in on the last one, if I don't have a reading, or right at the beginning, I might pop in and say hi and then go do my readings. I might. I'm not going to promise. Maybe like a carrot.
We'll see.
But it would literally just be a pop in and pop out. Like, hey, everybody. Are you having fun? But yeah, it felt really good because I know you guys have got it, So thank you. It's really good. Jen's blushing.
Yes. You can hear it through the screen.
I can hear. She's like, okay, I don't know what to say with that one. Thanks, Lori. I've left everybody's homework. What did you think of the homework exercise? I mean, and the results. I've been enjoying the creativity in there.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how people are coming to these understandings about themselves, in all of the many different ways that is happening.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And the homework isn't really pass or fail. It's just to further gain understanding, So,
yeah, just like exercises to help you think about it.
Go ahead, Jen. I'm Malcolm's barking. I'm going to put myself on mute. But yeah, tell me more about what you're hoping to do with the Planet of the Club.
I'm hoping that we just make a little space to have discussions about what we're learning and our realizations, because I like having that data on people that I know, like, can get their experience firsthand on how things are playing out for them. That's something really valuable that I found, like, in our astrologers little group, is sharing like our own experiences, or like asking, like, do you know someone with this thing in their chart and how it's playing out for them, it can really help inform like how we talk about it.
Oops, sorry. Just when I thought we were safe. You are correct. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I just want other people to have that experience as well, to like learn that more like applied side of it and like real world astrology.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that's kind of lacking in the astrological world. I think the intellectual side is well taken care of. And there's lots of good resources for that. But I think applied astrology, you know, is a little weaker, and that's what I like to do, is apply it. So I'm with you, Jen. I'm with you. And it's a good space. I've been amazed at how many people have like just really wanted it, you know. And I was like, oh wow, because the day I launched it, I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe nobody wants this. And then whew, all these people, which is exciting, you know.
Yeah, I know there's more people that want to join.
Yeah, and it's revolving. It's revolving. You can join at any time. So, and next month, like this month is the sun. Next month is Mercury. I'm glad we're doing Mercury, and I'm not doing the moon until past Venus. But Mercury, I think, will be a very necessary planet to ponder as we move through March.
Oh yeah, that'll be interesting to be meditating on that one.
We'll be mastering that Mercury. But yeah. But for now, the sun. Yeah. So if you're a patron, guys, the discount, the 40% off all readings still applies. And here's something I keep getting, and I've been meaning, probably talk about it elsewhere in the podcast too. People have been thinking when I say, hey, the discount's good through February 18th, they don't realize they can book out as far as they want. I don't have a limit on how far out. If I'm booked through March, book in April. You know, book in August. You know, although I don't generally suggest doing that because you don't really know what your schedule is. But you know, you can book out if I'm full for a month or Jen's full for a month, book the next month. We're not limiting you there. I'm just saying the discount ends on the 18th, and it's 40% off. Do it. That's one of my Valentine's Day presents. So, to patrons. Jen would make a great Valentine present.
I would.
That's right. Oh, it's always a pleasure, Jen.
Yeah, I love having these conversations. Share.
Me too. I love your enthusiasm for the subject. I think that's the thing that caught me the most when you first started studying with me in the group. And I was like, damn, I love her style. They're learning all the time. My kind of person. So, yeah.
It's hilarious that I never would have thought that this would be what I would be doing.
I think many of us, yeah, that's where we ended up.
I was like, wow, this is applied math. Oh my God, it's applied psychology. Oh my God.
Right?
It's like all of these things that I love. I'm like,
yeah, it's applied. Yeah, I don't know. Call me salty. I just don't think, I know theoretical stuff has its place. I'm like, why can't you just use it?
Yeah, so. That's like a disconnect I had. Like even with learning math, there's like the pure math, which is so heady and like it's fascinating, but yeah, like what I much prefer the applied math. Like okay,
yeah, daily life, man, daily life. Well, thank you. Thank you again for coming on. And again, you guys can book with Jen or any of the other astrologers, me. It's all, if you're a patron, the 40% off is good till February 18th of 2023. So there we go. Alrighty. See you next time. All right, let's talk about the full moon. The full moon on March 7th. Yes, I am giving you a lot of time to get ready. There's a lot of energy with this one, kind of like the Leo full moon had, only it's going to be a different flavor. I do think it will involve environmental issues. I think it will involve healthcare. I think it will involve rules and procedures, and I think we will see we'll see some violence with this one. And the reason I'm saying this is because the full moon in Virgo, of course, which is when the moon and the sun are in opposition, is in an applying square with Mars. And anytime we have an applying square, it's a huge buildup of energy, okay? And it doesn't matter which planets are involved. It's a buildup of energy that is eventually released in a decision. Okay. Now, decisions can be good, they can be bad, but a decision is a finality. Something happens. Okay. We're using philosophical language here. On a personal level, this can be really good. This could be you finally make a decision that you've been kind of holding out on. This could be you're finally making some moves, or you get creative. You take something into your hands and shape it and mold it. So on a personal level, these types of days can be good. It could be while the rest of the world is falling apart, you're having a great day. That's why I do the full moon workshops at the end of every month. So you want to check the link in the description to see the full moon workshop that I'll be offering at the end of February. Because this is where I can talk to you about how this will impact you personally. Okay. You got to remember there's 8 billion people with 8 billion astrology charts. When we talk in general terms, it is in general terms, and the themes will match in some ways, but it won't be the exactitude we can talk about in like a group session or a private reading. And I'm booked before that full moon, so there's no getting in for the private reading, but the group work, I'm going to try to get through as many people as I can and make it as relevant as possible to everybody. And then we'll do the releasing ceremony where we work through getting rid of the blocks so that square is less uncomfortable to you personally, okay? On a mundane level, that's a collective level, that's the political level, that's the weather level. These are the big events that individuals don't really have a whole lot of agency over. Those are the conditions of life. Okay, there might be individuals partaking in there, but this is the big stuff. This is kind of the out of our hand stuff. And March is really going to show us what we have control over and what we have no control over. And we can be as prepared as possible. Sometimes you're not able to physically prepare for things, big things, like earthquakes and storms. You can be as prepared, but if it's bigger than anyone expected, well, there's going to be stuff we can't control. But we can control how we view our circumstances, and it makes such a big difference, okay, guys? And I'm not being glib, and I'm not talking about being toxically positive. It's pragmatically optimistic, okay? Understanding what your skill sets are, understanding that mindset matters. And I've lived a really interesting life, guys. I've had a lot of stuff happen to me. I have created situations for myself. It's been an interesting 53 years, okay? And the one thing I've learned is it's not really the conditions, but the attitude we have as we meet them that matter. And so I'll talk a little bit about that in this segment. But I want to first talk about the mundane. So I think we could see more transportation accidents. I think we could see an even bigger chemical spill, a petroleum spill, something to do with natural gas. We could see explosions, maybe not exactly at the time of the full moon, but later in the day, because it's not just the day of the full moon, which is in an applying square to Mars. It's the day that Saturn ingresses into Pisces. It's really a perfect storm for chemical events, petrochemical events, explosions of certain kinds. We're kind of lucky that Mars is not in a square with Saturn at that time. So that's good. That diminishes it a little bit. But the moon is in a trine, which is unrestricted energy, to Uranus. So I do believe there will be either seismic or volcanic events. These could be most likely in the South Pacific or Asia, okay? And it could also be impacting New Zealand and Australia. Those are the big ones that I see there. It could be aftershocks in Turkey and Syria on those fault lines. You have to remember, there are so many fault lines. Like the earthquake app I use to kind of keep track of where things are going, it only shows the major fault lines, but there's lots of little ones all over the place. And remember, we have thousands of earthquakes a day. Really, we do. We just don't feel most of them. The Earth's crust is always moving. It's the big ones above a 4.5. So 4.5, and I think with this one, we're seeing 6.0 or higher. It could cause a tsunami because of the Pisces action. And as Saturn moves into Pisces, I think we'll see, definitely see some interesting action, because the moon will be moving in further into opposition with Neptune at that time. So there could be Navy events. I think we could see more naval skirmishes. Whether these things are reported or not is another question, because a lot of the predictions I've made, I won't see headlines for on the day or even the week. But if I look back a year, I'll find all these stories that weren't making it into, the public sphere as much, like little articles here and there. You have to be like a super sleuth to find the information anymore. So there's that. These are big events. Be prepared for there to be something so big they can't not talk about it. Okay. And I think that's probably a natural event. It could be a storm. Again, this is going to cause erosion, but it could be seismic. It could be a landslide. It could be an issue at sea. It could be some bigger things. I think when it comes to any military conflicts, these are going to be hidden if possible. I do think we'll see some things revealed later in March, okay? Because I think tensions are going to continue to build. There is somebody, or more than somebody, trying to start some wars here, guys. Now, I do not see global thermonuclear war. I do not see that on my 2023 bingo card, okay? I don't really see it on any card because it would be a dumb thing to do. But I do see things advancing into conflict. The way things are going, using both my political analysis skills, or my analytical skills, and my astrological knowledge, I'm seeing that it's really being pushed right now, right? And there's attempts at mitigating. At some point, it's going to push over, okay? And we will see some conflict. So what I'm seeing in the U.S. news is kind of a prep to get people to agree to some kind of conflict. It's usually how that rolls. What I'm most concerned about with everyday people, and again, this is global, is food and water supplies, okay? Our water sources have been polluted for decades. the lack of safety elements that has happened. They stripped the EPA a long time ago, guys. You know, it hardly has any teeth. All right. And none of these companies are being held accountable. You know, if you think of, and they haven't been, you know, they just haven't been. There was like a fund to clean up, you know, but nobody went to jail. Nobody was held accountable. And I think this is what's going to spur on collective rebellion or collective action by people. I'm not sure it'll be successful in the next 5 years. Okay, I think there's going to be the attempt to suppress populations. And, you know, it's funny because people think, oh, if you're educated, you know how to fight back. Except educated people don't tend to fight. They tend to try to reason. Most of the great revolutionary eras were done by people who were, if they were literate, it was barely. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to try to grow food. It's going to be interesting to try to mitigate things, okay? It just is. So it's important to try to, Malcolm, inside Barks, it's to make things as easy for yourself as you can, okay? If you want to look up some themes, we're looking at May to June of 93 and end of December of 94, end of January of 94. These were times when Saturn ingressed at 0 degrees of Pisces. And so these are some interesting times, and you can look up those important dates online. It's frustrating. What is the date I found? Oops, that's not what I was looking for. Hey, Malcolm. Okay, so January 28th of 1994, there were some big things that happened. That was the time that, so we had Bill Clinton stuff going on. Not seeing the big thing that happened. Hang on. No, I don't want to do that. I had these dates saved. Hang on. Let's see. That was not giving me what I wanted. Well, here's the deal. In the spring of 93, when Saturn was in Pisces, we had the Branch Davidian situation. And also, that year was the year that Scientology was recognized, and the current head of it, who people are looking for right now, announced that it was recognized in the States officially. And so I think there's going to be some stuff coming up with that, because there's a Saturn return with that announcement. There should be some good tea. Now, on the other hand, there's going to be some classic film made, some good music made during the Saturn and Pisces era. And there might even be some songs released around that time on that full moon that are pretty cool. There might be some pretty good music. Or even, again, film, things that are classic. Because Clerks was released in 94 when Saturn moved into Pisces, and it's got some staying power if you haven't seen that Kevin Smith film. It was very classically 90s. So there's going to be good stuff that comes out of this, guys. I'm just very concerned for a large global event that involves toxins or some kind of conflict. I think we could see some mass violence on the public level, and that could be like a high-speed chase, a stabbing, a shooting. It could be something to do with that. We could see something that impacts healthcare. There could be announcements or things revealed when it comes to healthcare. And some of those could be good. It doesn't mean they're all bad. We could hear about new pharmaceuticals and techniques that have been invented. But I think we will see issues with hospitals. We could even see violence at a hospital. So on that full moon, if you're a healthcare worker, please be very aware that day, okay? You know, we've all been through a hell of a lot over the last 3 years. There isn't anybody who hasn't been impacted by the enduring change that we're living in, okay? And it's weighing on people. And so people are going to be more reactive. And full moons are already big days for that, let alone a full moon with an approaching square to Mars. And then hours later, Saturn moving into Pisces. How do you prepare for this? If you live anywhere near like an airport or a railroad or whatever, have some water. You know, it's just a good idea to keep some water, fresh, potable drinking water. Because we may not even hear about what's going on in water systems, you know. And hell, Flint still isn't fixed, you know. I wonder why people get upset about taxes when our tax dollars aren't really going to the people, you know. That's going to become an issue more and more over the next few years. You know, the need to collectively support our society. And I think that, if anything else, is going to get pushed. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of bummed because we had some great opportunities to innovate, and maybe I am just impatient. Maybe those times are that energy does ring out over time. So hopefully innovation happens and we're able to take better care of people on the planet and the planet itself. But it's just going to be really crunchy. I fully expect most of my crunch reports to run between 80 and 90 throughout the month of March. Okay. And it starts off really bad with big booms, you know. And again, I think we will see explosions on the 7th. And this could be refineries. This could be, again, derailments. This could be a lot of things going on all at one time. So be very, very aware. I would mask up. I think we're going to see the consequences, and I've been saying this for years now. I think we're going to see the consequences of bad health policy as Saturn moves into Pisces. And we're going to see the repercussions of long COVID. So, you know, and it's not, you know, I know people who've been boosted and they masked and they still got it. Well, it's a mitigation effort against something that is really contagious. Okay. I think we'll hear about more viruses. People have asked me about the avian flu, and my biggest concern about the avian flu is the cost of poultry and eggs, the inflationary. It's not an easy disease to get to humans, and it's harder for humans to transmit it. It's not like a COVID situation. It's not one you want to get, though. I wouldn't be French kissing chickens or wild birds. I would be very careful about touching wild animals. I see a lot of videos of people handling wildlife, which is illegal, first of all. Second of all, they carry disease. Okay, so don't be handling, if a bird is letting you pick it up, it's sick. Okay, you know, wild bird letting you pick it up, it's sick. And if you have chickens, I would not let them free range. All right, guys? That's just all there is to it. I would make sure they're in a clean coop, and I would make sure you get tests to swab them to double check if anything does have avian flu, because it's not treatable, and you can lose your entire flock. Okay? So these are things. And yes, I do know about that because I have lived a very interesting life, and I have raised poultry and waterfowl. in my life, beyond the rabbits when I was a kid. So you want to be watching that. We had an issue with H1N1 in the States, gosh, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, I can't remember. My kids were actively showing animals at the time, so it was a thing. So you got to be really careful with it because you don't want to lose all your birds. And yeah, food prices, inflation is going to continue. Now, this is just March 7th and the days around it that I'm talking about. The day, especially a couple days after, the 3 days after the full moon. This full moon happens at 4:30-ish in the morning on the West Coast. That's 7:30-ish East Coast time in the morning. So I can expect some crazy commutes, big accidents, jackknifing, derailments. Could see some airline crashes, helicopter crashes. There's going to be some big stuff. It'll be one of those like, oh my God, what isn't happening today days, March 7th. And then we'll have the equinox on March 20th, and that is another volatile day. I am not happy about the equinox chart. It's extremely volatile. It's another big boom scenario. I'll do a podcast on it, I promise. And then the 23rd, we have Pluto ingressing into Aquarius. And the days between the equinox and the 23rd are very, very extreme energy. Extreme in 2023. That's why I'm teaching the workshop on the 4th, because again, I don't want to just scare you with my mundane thoughts, with the collective reading, with the global reading. I want you guys to be able to get in and ask questions. So remember, patrons, you have a code for 60% off that Pluto workshop. That is good until February 18th. Okay. So get registered now because I've made it as accessible as I can. I have limited space. Okay. And that's where I'll go over some of the deeper astrology and what I see coming. But also I'll be able to answer your questions about how this impacts you personally. That's really important information. So if you can get into that, do it. Sign up today. I'll get a special discount out to former clients and people on my mailing list. It won't be the 60% off, but it'll still be juicy. Okay, it'll still be juicy. Patrons always get the juiciest because without them, there is no me. So thank you, patrons. I know it sounds like a bit of a Debbie Downer, doesn't it? I'm not fond of giving these types of predictions, but at the same time, I want you as emotionally and psychologically prepared as possible. And being anxious about it isn't going to fix it. It's not going to prevent it. It's not going to help it. It's not going to make it go away. It's important to take care of it. Okay? It's important to take care of it. I want you guys to take care of what you can take care of. Again, have some fresh water. I always keep a few gallons of fresh water on me anyway. Why? Am I a doomsday prepper? No, I've lived through really bad storms. I've been snowed in for weeks. I've dealt with natural disasters. I've traveled to places where you couldn't get good water if you didn't, keep it on hand. You can drink it out of the sink. So having those things on hand is always good. Having your pantry filled, and I really want everybody to keep their pantry stocked up throughout the year anyway, because I think we're going to have a food supply issue starting in May. And I'll talk more about that too. Don't freak out about it. Just prepare for it. What should you buy? Stuff you like to eat, guys. Dried goods, canned goods. And inflation isn't going away. It's not going away. When the experts on the TV or out of the Fed are talking about inflation, they're talking about big ticket items. They're talking about manufacturing costs. They're talking about your electronics. They're talking about cars. They're talking about things like fuel. They're talking about electricity. They're not talking about food, okay? They're not talking about services, all right? They're talking about stuff they care about. They took food out of the calculations in the early 80s because Reagan's economist, the genius that he was, said, well, if we keep food in, it skews the numbers. Are you kidding me? You know, ridiculous. So anyway, we have that. So alrighty-dighty, my friends. That's what's up on March 7th. If you are a patron, feel free to ask me about it in our Discord. The one thing I can say that I'm looking forward to in March, we are, besides the Pluto workshop that I'm doing on March 4th to kind of get you at least your loins girded for it, the Planet of the Month Club will be dealing with Mercury. And I can't think of a more important planet to work on during March, because Mercury is our mind and our thinking and mastery of that. Okay. So that is what is up on deck in March. It's Mercury. Super excited about that. People are loving Planet of the Month. We started with the sun. We're going in astronomical order, which is not traditional astrology, but it's something I've played with for the last 3 decades. And it really helps to understand your individual energies when you do that. Because you have to remember, if we went moon to sun, the most important thing about the moon is to understand it has no light of its own. It has a gravitational pull, but no light of its own. All of its light it gains from the sun. Yeah, it does. So I think it's important to not just sit in a static space when it comes to interpreting astrology. I think we stand on the shoulders of giants and process and procedure and understand that calculations are there, and there's some really good, well-tested, solid processes when it comes to astrology. But when it comes to interpretation, we must move it forward, because we as a species are hopefully evolving and not devolving. It's some days it's a toss-up. But if we want to evolve and move forward and be better, then we have to improve our interpretation skills. Okay. And so I am excited about Mercury. It's one of my favorite planets. It's one of the least discussed because it's the least thought about. And we need to, because it's just how you communicate. It's just how you think. And yet at the end of the day, how you process information, how you perceive the world shapes your reality. And Mercury is at the center of that. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with. So if you're on the fence about joining the Planet of the Month Club, I encourage you to do so, because one of the things I'm really focusing on for March in the Planet of the Month Club is keeping the energy even as we can, because we are moving into crunchy, bumpy times come March. And I would love to say that's the only crunch we have in 2023. It's just March, and then everything will be hunky-dory. Yeah, no, that is not how this energy is playing out, and I am honestly toning it down. So before anyone, especially if you're new, wants to accuse me of being an alarmist, think again. Because if anything, I'm toning it down. All right. So I don't want you guys to be afraid. I want you to be as prepared as you can be. Make sure you're connecting in the Discord. And if you haven't joined, just know that all patrons, regardless of level, get access to the Discord. Okay. It is a good place to connect. You can ask me questions. You can tag me. Please feel free to tag me with your questions. All right. I will answer them the best as I can. Speaking of questions, I'm going to answer a couple from the Google form that patrons have filled out and let you know some of my answers when it comes to your astrological questions. That way we end this on a high note. Okay, I don't want you to leave my podcast depressed. Okay, I just don't. And it's going to be easy to be bummed out in March. Okay, and you're like, but February has already been a shit show. Like, yeah. And it hasn't even started yet. So let's end this on a high note. and work on keeping ourselves in as reasonably positive a space as we can be. All right? All right? All right. Let's get on with the questions. All right, let's end this on a lighter note. First of all, thank you to patrons for asking such great questions. I want you to follow me on my Instagram as well. I've been answering some questions there in my stories at Astrology. I still have the woke astrology, but it's kind of messy, so started a new one that looks better. Let's see. We are going to our first question here. And it is by Kendra. What are your picks for the top 3 most significant natal transits everyone will likely see in their lifetimes, and what might make them each significant to a personal life? Wow, that is a big question and a good question. So we're looking at the tertiary planets and one outer planet for this one. I would say Jupiter returns. Jupiter returns are a time, they're not always positive, they're not always happy, skippy, joy. They happen every 12 years. So if you look at when you're 12, 24, what's the next one? 24 and 12 is 36, 48, okay? Those are big times in our lives, and we expand. They might be tough years, and it depends on the other transits happening too, because no transit happens in isolation. So not every Jupiter return is going to be the same. You're going to have some that are really cool and you can practically walk on water. And then there's going to be other ones where you're like, what the hell is going on with my life? But they always lead to an expansion and understanding of self if you're willing to do the work. Okay, if we're not willing to do the work, then it's never going to be comfortable. So there's that. There's those Jupiter returns. The next one I'm going to say is Saturn returns. Saturn returns are a coming of age. It is an authority that you take on for yourself. You have to be accountable. You have to be responsible. They're not easy transits, my friends. They're not easy transits. But at the same time, you could be putting into your life path. It could be one of the best years of your life, a Saturn return. That might be when you plan on having kids, or you marry somebody you really care about, or it could be when you start off on your real career, your avocation. It is certainly going to be a time where you make some big decisions. And we all compromise a little bit during that Saturn return, but you're not stuck with those decisions forever. You have a time during that Saturn cycle to make changes and amend and what have you. If you want to know more about Saturn returns or Saturn in the houses, I have 2 little workshops up on my Snip feed, and you can just get those and watch those on Snip feed. Okay, and that link is in the description here. So they're on sale right now, so have at it. I know a lot of you waiting on your Saturn returns are a little nervous. Then the third transit, I think, offers some of the best opportunity to grab life by the horns. And that is the Uranus opposition. And that happens between about 42 and 43 years old. And, it's a little different for everybody, but remember, Uranus has an 84-year orbit. So smack dab in that, around the age of 42, it could be the 43rd year, but you're not 43 yet. But anyway, it depends on the way the transits work for you personally, on exactly what age it happens. But that Uranus opposition is really something else. It was glibly discussed when I was a student. People call it, the year of the midlife crisis. And what I saw it as, and it is a crisis point, because decisions are being made, because remember, squares and oppositions are always about the decision. it's a time where you're like, okay, like in your 30s, you'd be like, well, I'll do that someday, right? But by the time you're in your early 40s, you're like, that's a whole lot of some days I may not have. You're a little more aware of your mortality at that point. And so it's, how do I want to live my life? Now, for some people, it's when they have the affair, it's when they end the marriage, it's when they buy the sports car, get the vacation home, and call it good. Other people decide to kind of upend their lives in a different way. And it's not just, oh, I don't want to be married anymore because I'm done with that. It's, I'm not married anymore because I need to grow and jump into this new life that doesn't really have anything to do with anybody else. It's not about dating other people. It's just about growing. The people who then go on to date and kind of try to find their youth again, they're not making the best use out of that energy. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying if you take your Uranus opposition as a time to have a personal renaissance, like get rid of the compromise, because what happens around that time too is the Saturn square. You finish the Saturn opposition, or you're in the Saturn opposition happens around the same time. The next Saturn square is 7 years later in your late 40s, early 50s, before the second Saturn return. So it's this time of, who am I? Who do I really want to be? How does my younger self view me? What would that 5-year-old me think, that 10-year-old me, that 16-year-old me? What would I be wanting myself to do now? And you can really grab things on. And sometimes you could be having kind of both things happen around the same time. Like you could have a Jupiter return and a Saturn return. You could have a Jupiter return and a Uranus opposition. Those could happen at the same time. So it would be those planets. Pluto transits, not everybody's going to have one to the same way as somebody else because of its orbit. Same with Neptune. And not everybody's going to live to their Uranus return. Not everybody lives to be about 84. So, in general, I'd say we're looking at the Jupiter returns, that these are things everybody can have. Obviously, you got to live long enough for these things. So, in your 12th year, your 24th year, your 36th year, your 48th year, those are the Jupiter returns. And then we have the Saturn opposition, or the Saturn return. But all of the Saturn cycle, the squares, it's a cycle. But Saturn returns are what most people know, and it's coming into yourself as an authority, or where you abnegate authority and you don't take on agency, right? I push that you do so that you do it, because then you're more fulfilled. It can be scary, but it doesn't mean, scary doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a little bit weird, right? And then we have the Uranus opposition that happens in the early 40s. And that's something else too, let me tell you. Right around that Saturn opposition. So those are things people go through, and those are real opportunities. But again, like Pluto conjunct a personal planet, or conjunct, your ascendant, when it goes over your ascendant, or if it's in opposition to one of your personal planets. Not everybody experiences that in a lifetime. Lucky duckies for us that get to. Oh, but thank you, Kendra. That was a great question. I love that so much. Let me see. What's next? I'll see the next question. Let's see. Got to get the right. Remember, I don't see very well, so it takes me a minute to find things when I'm reading. My daughter is urging me to be more upfront about my vision, so I'm still legal to drive, kind of. I don't drive at night. I'm not allowed to do that. But, and I see well enough to drive. I don't drive a ton anymore, though. It strains my eyes. So I'm getting pretty low vision. And hopefully we'll be able to do some correction with that next year. But she's like, stop hiding it. Be honest about it. And she's right. So I'm just letting you know. I'm pretty low vision. So let's see. Oh, speaking of Saturn. All right. What are possible events, conditions that can occur when Saturn transits over the IC? That's the start of the 4th house. So good question and really broad. Okay. Because you have to remember there are 12 signs. Okay, so it depends on what sign Saturn is in to give the theme. Because the planet is the what. So Saturn represents rules, restrictions, authority, etc. And the sign says how. It's the adjective side of it. It's what describes the what. Okay, and the 4th house is the place, the house would be the where. So when Saturn goes over the IC, which I will be having, or actually I just went through, when Saturn goes over the IC, you're probably ready to, if you don't already own property, you're seriously thinking about it. Okay. So I just had that happen in January, and I've been seriously thinking about buying my own space, which it's not like I haven't wanted it before. It's just life circumstances never led me to do so. It's also a time of kind of leaning into your part that you play in your family, taking responsibility for any of the roles you play. And as much as we like to point fingers at the rest of our family for family patterns, etc., we contribute to that. So kind of being honest about that. It could be a time you want to be more grounded. It may not be a time where you're traveling a lot. You might be more centrally located. It's a time you're more focused on family matters, more focused on, kind of taking on your responsibilities in a family or a household. It could be a time you're dealing with maintenance issues, but it really just depends on the planet on the cusp there, and it depends on what transits are also like what's happening with that Saturn, and then what planets do you have in the 4th house. Okay, so with Saturn moving into Pisces, now it won't happen for me this year, but next year, probably towards the end of next year or early 2025, I'm kind of interested to see what happens, because the last time Saturn was at like 21 degrees of Pisces, astrology hit me in the face. It just showed up in my life and took my breath away, and I ended up on this discipline in a metaphysical journey as much as the mental and academic journey that astrology gave me. So that was pretty fascinating. So I'm kind of curious about what happens this go round with it. But yeah, so it could be you decide to set your roots. It could be that you're not able to travel as much. It could be that you're getting more serious about home ownership. It could be that if you do own a home, it could be you have things like having to fix a foundation, or making sure you have a new roof, or doing remodeling or redecorating and getting more appropriate things than what you have right now. So yeah, that is what that would be. Thank you so much for that question. And I don't remember that I said your name, so give me a second. That was from Heather. Thank you, Heather. And that is what I've got for episode 8. I know it was a little heavy, guys, but you got to listen to Jen giggle a little bit, and to me, that's a wonderful thing. Remember, patrons, you have special discounts right now through February 18th is my Valentine for you. And so I'm Gonna just remind you of that. If you're not a patron, remember all patrons, regardless of their level, get those discounts. Thank you very much.